All right, guys, I'm gonna really up the entertainment value here today. I need to wash the M3, but I also need to get this video series done so that I can get the bio section of my website at least roughed in. So what I'm going to do today is talk you through what I call my car progression, so you can have an idea of sort of what cars I've had and why. Okay guys, today you should be excited because you're not going to have to sit here and stare at my ugly face for 30 minutes straight. Instead, you can watch me wash the car while I take you through the next topic on my video series that I need to do or I guess I don't need to do, but would like to do for the website, which is, I'm calling, Who Am I? So, I need to wash the car here today, so I'm going to talk you through the next video, which is my car progression and what cars I've owned and why, and my little tips of advice for the younger guys that are watching my videos. So, I actually didn't start driving, I think this is weird, I didn't start driving until I was 17. Believe it or not, I was a skater punk, in the beginning, in the early 90s, 93, 94 was when I, when new school skateboarding really started to get bigger. And I was super pansy, but I was actually not too bad. I was a decent technical skater, but not so great at doing the big sets of stairs and things like that. But I was riding my skateboard everywhere, so I didn't feel the need to get a car right away. I learned how to drive stick on a Subaru XT, my mom's car. I think the thing had like 95 horsepower, and it was terrible. But it taught me how to drive. I learned how to drive a stick on that. Uh-oh. Got this cut on the dust guard. That's the first time that's ever happened. There we go. So, my first car I bought, 2,500 bucks, was a 1988 Pontiac Sunfire GT. It was I think it was a 1.8 liter turbo. But here's the problem with that car. I could only go one place at a time. We didn't know this, but I think the block was cracked or something. So I had that car for about a year. Little did I know that was going to be a foreshadowing of the rest of my life and how long I was going to have cars. But I had that car for about a year because I could only go one place at a time. It would overheat and sort of shut off. So I would drive to school, let it sit, and then as long as I waited for it to completely cool off, then I could make it home. So I had that car for about a year. And then the next car I got, actually what I wanted to get was a Ford Probe GT, because I was really into car stereos at the time. And I really, really loved the fact that it was a hatch. And if you're into subs at all, you know that if you have a hatch, it just makes things easier. It makes it louder. So I wanted that car. It was like 10 grand. My dad wouldn't let me get it. He said it was too fast and too expensive, and he's probably right. So instead, I got an amazing, what was it? I think it was a 92 base automatic Chevy Beretta. The Pontiac Sunfire GT was an automatic as well. So here I am, a car guy in the making, and I'm driving two really crappy cars. They were nice, they were clean, they were well maintained, but not my style. So I had that car through college. Actually, what I did is, my parents gave me a loan, and we paid cash for the car, and it was $9,000 for the car. It had like 10,000 miles, so it was relatively new. And I got that, when I was about 18, so sort of halfway through my senior year in high school. So I needed to pay that car off before I went to college. So what I did, I was a janitor, a maintenance worker, and I did that from like 7 to 3, cleaning toilets and trash cans and duck crap off the beach and stuff. And then what I would do from 3, I'd go home, eat something real quickly, and then from 4 to 10, I was a cart pusher at Walmart, and that's what got me through paying off the remaining balance on the car. And I paid it off in sort of the last week when the money was or last week before I went to college. You sneaking up on me? I'm trying to make a video here, Chris. My fans need this information. Yeah, that's fine. You guys made it into one of the videos one time. You guys were trying to move one of those giant pots over there. Everybody was making fun of you on the videos because I had the camera set up over here.
Oh, really? That's not.
And people were like, I was just watching your neighbor try to move that pot around for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, I had that goofball Chevy Beretta, which you guys are gonna laugh at this. So I'm a skater. I have a red Chevy Beretta, base Beretta. Chopped this back seat out, got some Eclipse 15s in the back. And by the way, I've got a yellow Wu-Tang sticker on the side of the car. Not on the side of the car, but on the window. Yeah, I didn't exactly have quite as keen of a sense of self-awareness back when I was 18, 19 years old. Anyway, so that car, eventually when I got my job selling home theater, now it's time to get started with becoming a car guy. And I hadn't really thought through it all that much. I just knew I wanted a different car. Well, my buddy had just gotten the new AP1 S2000, so he had a pretty sweet electron blue 99 Civic Si. So this was right around 2000, 2001, something like that. And so I basically just left the Beretta at home. My parents eventually sold it because they were paying the insurance on it. So I just let them keep it. And got the Civic. And the Civic had like Enki 17s on it, and had like a ground control, sleeve coilover set up. It had like a cold air intake, a few strut tower braces and things like that. But I wanted to, that started the obsession. I remember, if you watched any of the other videos, I had gotten a job where I'm making like 50 times more than I'd ever dreamed of making at 20 years old. So I started buying all kinds of cool stuff. Kind of like what I do now, only on a much smaller, less expensive scale. So I ordered Tane RA suspension, and at that time, Godspeed was the guy who was selling most of the stuff for Civics. At least he was the guy that I followed, because he was a Toda dealer and a JDM dealer, and sold Tane and Volk and just cool stuff. So I started ordering stuff. I had gotten some Volk TE37s and a Tane RA suspension, and switched out for Type R seats, and started looking into doing an engine swap, and You know, you got a Toda header, Comtech exhaust, all kinds of cool stuff. So, you know, you know, even if I had it today, I would say it was done right. I did a Iasca Pro competition stereo, and you know, the thing was really cool. It probably had a $30,000, $12,000 Civic. And I still think to this day that, you know, whenever I see one of those cars, I really like them. I think they, I mean, obviously underpowered, but it's a cool looking car. It really holds up. It's held up the test of time. The interior was not too bad. So from that point, I'd moved to Florida, and I really wanted an S2000. I mean, as a Honda guy, that was sort of the, other than maybe an NSX, that's sort of the pinnacle of what every Honda guy wants to own. So I really, I don't know if I was buying too much stuff, so I really didn't have the cash to buy a new S2000, so I leased one. It was my first experience with leasing. I don't even know what that meant, but I decided to lease it. Thought that was sounded like a good idea at the time. It really wasn't all that bad. I got to turn it back in when I was done with it. Let's put the camera over here. Let's see if I can actually capture this. So now I'm in deep. You know, I'm a big time car guy. You know, loving it, every minute of it. And the S2000 was the first car that I started doing stuff myself. My buddies and I did the Toda header on the Civic, but what I did, I made the mistake. I sold the Civic outright with everything on it. You know, 15 grand worth of parts on it. So this time I started doing, you know, we'd moved to Florida, we had a garage. I had some other Honda buddies that I'd met, and we the first thing I did was the suspension and then the exhaust, and just started doing stuff myself. After we did the Toda header on the Civic, learned that the thing to do is to keep your parts, keep your stock parts. That way, when you're done with the car, you put it back together, sell all your other parts, and then take that money and reinvest it into whatever if you want to call it investing, but put it back into the next car. So you get, you know, say 50, 60 cents on the dollar back on wheels and tires and aftermarket parts and things like that. So that's when I really started to get involved more in the forums on S2KI, and just started participating a little bit more, not to the point that I do now, not even close, but you know, so I did that car, and I, for some reason, decided I needed 16s. And I did some 16 Volk CE28Ns, the Detain RAs again. I had a bunch of different exhausts, ended up settling on a Mugen exhaust. You know, and did that car reasonably right. I never did a hardtop on that car. But when I turned it in, you know, I had the factory front lip and all that stuff. When I turned it in, I, you know, reverted it back to stock. No problems with modifying it, leasing it. Sent it back to Honda. Everything was cool. So, actually, what happened with that S2000 was I'd gotten 6 tickets in Florida inside of 2 years, and just, you know, I wasn't a super aggressive driver, but you know, that whole adage of a red car is partially true. You guys got me distracted. I can't remember if I actually cleaned the tire back there or not. I think I did. Yeah, I did. So I got all these tickets, and before I'd gotten my 5th and 6th one, which I'd gotten back-to-back day, you know, 2 days in a row, I decided I always wanted a motorcycle. Now, this makes about as much sense to me now as skateboarding did to me. You know, I'm a sissy, total pansy, totally reserved. A crotch rocket is not for me, but yet I decided I needed one. So I bought a 2007 Yamaha YZF R6, full Yoshimura titanium exhaust from the header back, and had it all dialed in. I couldn't ride it. I had to send it to my house because I didn't know how to ride it home. But I eventually learned how to putt around, and that thing what I did is I followed the break-in procedure, which is what you're supposed to do, and didn't go above like 4,500 RPMs or something like that for the first 600 miles. I sent it to the place. They came and picked it up because I wasn't comfortable enough to ride it to where I bought it from. They picked it up, took it there, changed the fluids, brought it back to me. So the next day I said, okay, I'm gonna go out and ride around, and then I pulled out on it was like a Tuesday afternoon, and or early or morning, like around 10 o'clock or something like that. I pulled out onto a divided 4-lane road, like a sort of like a suburban road. I looked around, no one's around, and I banged first gear, second gear, let off. Well, I got pulled over about 2.5 miles down the road by the mall, and the cop says 87 and a 35. I was like, oh shoot. So that was like, I don't know, $500, 4 points, the whole thing. The next day I'd gotten pulled over my S2000, and I said, you know what, this isn't for me. I sold all my parts, sold the bike, so, you know, did my 12 hours driving school and all that stuff, and decided I'm gonna just be a normal person. I'd met my wife, we were gonna get married, I got a real job at Merrill Lynch. It was time to grow up and be responsible. So what I did was sold everything, and I bought a 2002 Acura Acura RSX Type S, which, you know, it's not a bad car. Not my level of car, but it was good. And I decided, you know, I hadn't given up on cars, but I decided that I needed to stop reaching, stop stretching and trying to get the next best thing. And wait till I could pay cash for things and afford it more comfortably. So, because I knew when I bought a car, I'd want to modify it. So, the RSX was cool. It didn't last long before I started modifying the crap out of that thing. But I sort of decided at that point, which I still agree with, that I needed to take the proper steps. And this is something I think some advice I can give to some of you younger guys that watch these videos. And I'm glad I didn't do this, because I wanted an M3, and I almost bought an E46 M3 a bunch of times, even though I couldn't really afford it. Don't reach too quickly. Take the natural progression. Start it, you know, I did Civic Si to S2000 to, you know, and then up to M3 and other cars like that. But I'd advise you to, and I know this is hard to do, especially coming from me, but I'd advise you to take your time. You know, there's no reason to try to reach for a 911 right in the beginning, unless you just have super rich parents. And even then, it's probably smarter to start with like a WRX or a Civic Type R or something like that in the beginning. So don't reach too quickly. Take that progression. And in my opinion, that progression is the exact progression I took. I probably jumped to the S2000 a little quickly. I jumped to the Carrera S a little bit quicker than I probably should have. Just monetarily wise. And you can't enjoy it as much unless you can really afford it. So, let's see, where was I? So I sold the S2000, sold the bike, got the RSX, started to modify that a little bit, and then so it was maybe 6 months. Wife and I got married, my student loans were paid for, I could, you know, reasonably afford, I could get out of my RSX without losing any money. I hadn't really modified much on it. So it was time to get another S2000. That's what I wanted. So I really wanted another S2000 because I love that car. So I got a 2007 brand new, bought it, AP2 S2000. And at the time I was driving 40 miles each way from Orlando up to my office in the Villages. So it was a good car for, you know, a good sports car, super cheap to maintain. I'm a little big for it, but I got a hard top this time for it. And you know, it really was the right car for me. you know, I really wanted an M3 or wanted a 335, but I just wasn't there yet in life. So I got the S2000 and drove it like crazy. I mean, I drove that thing 135,000 miles in, what, 4 years I owned it. Let's see, 2007. I sold it in 11, yeah. So the 4 years I owned it. So the thing, you know, it did fantastically well. So I bought it for like 28 grand or something like that. Sold it for 12. You know, I sold it stock after I put all the parts. I bet you the kid still has it now who bought it from me. You know, I maintain it. That's the car I spent a lot of time learning the detail on. And so that thing really served its purpose. I think my bed's coming here, so I'm gonna have to shut the camera down here for a minute. Got a new mattress. I bought a new mattress and it's terrible. So, or we don't like it anyway. It's not a terrible mattress, we just don't like it. So, I don't like the return stuff, but we're swapping it out. Oh no, that's the garbage man. The sun's starting to catch up to us. So as I was saying, I got my AP2 S2000. Now it's really starting to get deep. I really wasn't making a lot of money at the time, so I couldn't just go modification crazy, so I had to do a little bit at a time. And that car did a hard top, and never really modified it too much. Got an exhaust and things like that. And then I decided, so I had that car about 4 years. I got at some point throughout the process, probably about 2 years into it, I got the manager position at my office, and so now I'm making a little bit more money. And I really wanted an M3, but I was driving too far for the new M3 to be practical. You know, I was driving a good, 40 miles each way a day, and an M3 gets like freaking 16 miles a gallon, and gas is $4 a gallon or something like that at the time. So it just wasn't reasonable for me to get an M3 yet. So I decided I wanted an S4. I've always wanted an S4 ever since seeing Kerry Getz's S4 that I worked on at Sound Advice. It was a B5, the yellow, the 2.7 twin turbo. I really wanted an S4. So my dream in life was S4, M3, 911. Those are my cars. And so I decided I'm going to order a custom. It was only like $2,500 or something like that to order a custom individual color. You could order from the Audi color palette. So I ordered a Sea-Pang blue, inspired by the R8 that I love. Sea-Pang blue B8 Audi S4. It's going to be freaking awesome. So I get on the horn, find a place that's willing to, give it to me at a reasonable price. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to sell my S2000 outright when it comes in. And that was the plan. So the plan backfired in that this was sort of the end of the B8 life cycle, because the B8.5 was coming out, in like a year. So Audi kind of was taking all these orders. So they were taking all these orders on B8s, but on individual colors, but they weren't actually filling them. They were just pushing them back, pushing them back, pushing them back. So they couldn't give me a solid build date. And I started actually, so this was a multi-month process in 2000, I want to say, yeah, it was 2010, the end of 2010. So this process I'm going through, waiting, it was supposed to take 2 months, and then it turned into 5 months, and then it turned into 8 months, and then it turned into forever of when the car was actually going to show up. So I woke up and I decided, why don't I just get, I'm starting to make a little bit more money over the time frame, and my future looks better. I said, why don't I just get an M3 and keep the S2000? So I wake up in the morning, like 2 in the morning or something like that, like I tend to do sometimes, overthinking things. And I decided maybe I should just get the M3, which is what I really want anyway. But I don't want to daily drive it because I'm driving too far. So I get up, I open the computer, and sure enough, there's some link on one of the forums to the RS4, the new B8 RS4, which you can't get over here, versus the E92 M3. Oh no, it was the new RS5, that's what it was. It was a Top Gear episode. And the M3 just absolutely stomped it. So I'm getting an S4, this is up against an S5, an RS5, and the M3 just stomps it. And I was like, what am I doing here? This is what I want, this is what I've always wanted. The cost is not all that different. So I was getting a pretty loaded up S4. I just decided, why don't I just get a stripped down M3? And then maybe I can convince my wife to let me keep the S2000, daily drive that, and just have the M3 to stare at. So, long story short, canceled the order. Found out about Performance Center delivery, found out about David Avilas, who was the #1 M-car salesman in the country. Called him up, got invoice without even haggling, ordered the car, did Performance Center delivery. So now I'm living the dream. I still love that car. I'm gonna get another one of those. I wouldn't give up this car for that, but in addition to this, I absolutely want an E92, a supercharged E92. So I got the E92, have the S2000. It wasn't long after that, this is where it starts to get crazy. The car guy progression starts to step it up really quickly from this point. I decided, I still really would like an S4, and I need a new daily driver, because driving this S2000, I'm 6'2", I'm just too big for, you start to justify all this stuff. So I convinced my wife that what I could do is, if I sell, again, finance guy here, not do as I say, not as I do. I decided what I could do is sell the S2000, and that'll finance the lease payments, because I know I don't want to own an S4 for a long time. I'd rather just have a car that I own long term, and then have a car that I lease. That way I'm constantly, every 3 years, getting a new car. I don't have to worry about depreciation. Even though, a lease typically is not a good way to do it. But I got an incredible lease rate on the S4. It was at the end of the cycle and end of the model cycle, and just a killer deal. So I get the S4, immediately do exhaust, intake, ECU tune. I think it's a beast. So I've got really a great combo of a daily driver S4, gets 22, 23 miles a gallon. It's, a solid 400 horsepower-ish. And then the M3 is my baby. So I end up modifying the crap out of the M3. Maybe not the crap, but I got a wheel, suspension, That was when I got my first set of Clausens, first and second set of Clausens, catless, ECU tune, dyno intake. So it was pretty well set up. The car was, forget what it was. It was like 380 wheel horsepower or something like that. And it was a cool car. And so, I wanted to keep that car for the rest of my life. At least that's what I told myself. So now I'm really starting to do well at my, at Merrill Lynch. The market's up. All that work that I did and throughout the recession of calling people and trying to get, clients to hire me while everybody else is hiding under their desk. I'm calling like a machine. I had partnered with Steve, Jim, and I knew Jim was going to retire at some point. So there was a clear progression in my income, and things were really going extremely well. So now was the time, probably maybe a year or two early, but now was the time, at least at the time I thought it was a little early, but now is the time to get a Carrera S that I wanted. I want a GT3, but I'm going to start with a Carrera S and work my way up. That was the plan. Get a Carrera S, keep that for 4 or 5 years, then get a GT3. The problem here was my ultimate goal was to have an M3 daily driver, and we knew we were going to have another kid. M3 daily driver, 911 weekend car. That was the plan. From the day I can remember. This was all part of the progression, car guy progression. So the problem is I had an E92, not an E90. So I had the 2-door, not a 4-door. So now this is going to take a little bit of work. And my E92 was worth quite a bit of money because they'd stopped making M3s. In comparison to what I paid for it. I paid $65 for it, and I sold it for $50, $40, $49, something like that. So put 15,000 miles on it, sold all my parts, got almost all my money back on my parts or close to it. And I traded it for the Carrera S. And I pre-traded it because I knew the Carrera S was going to take 6 or 7 months to get. So I had to get rid of the M3, and I knew the S4 lease would be up, 2 years after that. So then I have a nice progression. I get the Carrera S. A few years later, I'd get the M3 when the new one came out, this one. So then I'd have the ultimate combination of a awesome sports car daily driver. M5 doesn't really do it for me, and my 911. It was awesome. Well, I grew very impatient on the S4. I really didn't like that car. I didn't like that car at all. It was like driving a really, really fast Toyota Camry, a really nice Toyota Camry. It just lacked soul. Steering is very heavy. It was hard coming from an S2000 to that, and then getting used to the fantastic steering and handling ability of the E92 M3. And now, now I've got a Carrera S, which is light years above any car I've ever driven. Keep in mind, I never even drove a 911. I just knew I wanted one. So it really made me start to hate the S4. And now I'm doing really well, but I'm still reaching a little bit here. The new M3's coming out. I found a dealer that was willing that had a #1 allocation. Ocala, the Ocala dealership here. They were willing to buy the S4 from me early, break my lease early without me losing my shirt. And I ordered the F80, this car. Same thing, performance center delivery, the whole deal. So now I've got it. The Carrera S, and the F80 M3. Here comes my mattress. All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry, I was taking care of the mattress. So, notice I didn't dry the car off outside because the sun, the guys needed me to get the car out of the way. So, sometimes you need to improvise. You can't always have the perfect conditions. So, I'm gonna dry the car off. This is Griot spray on wax. Anyway, so I was saying I got the E92 M3, traded it for the Carrera S, knowing that I would get the new M3 when it came out. Now, I would assume I would wait till my S4 lease was up, but I hated that car so much that I ordered the M3. So, and I got them to, and the S4 held its value pretty well because the lease, the residual, the lease deal I got was pretty decent. So, I was able to get out of that without losing any money. So it's not a bad deal. Sometimes you can do that, the lease. But I didn't want to lease this because the lease, there's a brand new M3, the lease rates were terrible. And I knew I wanted to own it for a long time anyway, or at least a while. My version of a long time, let's say. So I ordered the M3. This was in 2014. My wife is about to kill me because I got all these new cars inside of a very short period of time. But I was done. I was settled. I have my dream cars. And then I want to get a GT3 someday. But part of the reason why I got the Carrera S in the first place was because you couldn't get a 991 GT3. They weren't available. You couldn't buy one. Otherwise, I would have bought one because my Carrera S was 135 grand. So, I would have just been better off getting the M3 right from the start. And then before I got my M3, I knew it was coming in late summer, early fall. The problem is I knew that we were also having my daughter at the same time. So I actually had to push my delivery back by about a month. So, because I still wanted to do performance center delivery. But in that time frame, my Carrera S started having this stumbling issue. And basically what would happen is as I'm driving around, if you were driving like an idiot, then it wouldn't matter. You couldn't tell. The car was fine. But if you were driving around like a sane, rational person around town, the thing would shake and stutter and stumble. And it wasn't like super bad to where you'd be like, oh my gosh. But it was bad enough that at one point I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get this thing to the dealer before it breaks down. So, long story short, the Carrera S's, about 30% of them we found have a stumbling issue. And so, that they still haven't fixed or diagnosed. So, it was stressing me out to the point of nervous breakdown. So my wife said, just get rid of it. Do whatever you want. And I could have written letters to Porsche and started battling and working with Porsche, regional, and I just didn't want to go through that. So we did the calculation. I did the calculation and decided I'm just going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to sell or trade the Carrera S because I couldn't sell it because I didn't want to screw somebody else, to come burn my house down when they realized that I sold them a messed up car. So the dealership, they were saying nothing's wrong with it. So I figured, well, they're not willing to fix it, then that's their problem, not mine. Maybe that's a bad attitude to have, but that's the attitude I took with it. So what I decided to do was from another dealership, I was going to order a GT3. So I'd gotten an allocation, was going to order a 991 GT3 in 2015. I really wanted the bucket seats, and I was going to order it. So literally in the midst of ordering the car, I'm not kidding, I'm not dramatizing this. I was on the phone with Ocala, and I got a call from Orlando. Now, I hadn't been talking to Orlando. That's where I bought my Carrera S from. I hadn't been talking to them because they didn't have an allocation, and they didn't have any cars, and they were 10 people deep, 15 people deep, waiting for a GT3. But I got a call, so I said, all right, hold on, Ocala. I need to, let me see what the Orlando wants. And it was my sales guy, Heiner. He said, Matt, you're not gonna believe this, but a blue, sapphire blue 991 GT3 just showed up, unspoken for. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, sapphire blue. I said, whoa. I said, that's exactly what I want. Now, I was gonna order white because I was too chicken to order blue, but I really wanted blue. So I said, send me the specs. So I called Ocala back. I said, give me 15 minutes. So Heiner sent me the specs. As I'm literally filling out the $5,000 non-refundable deposit form for Ocala to order a car, I start looking at the specs. I'm like, oh, yes, check. It had a few things that I didn't want that were extra, but 98% of what I wanted was perfect. You know, so the guy who ordered it virtually identically to the way that I would have. So, needless to say, I went and picked up the car, traded my Carrera S. So now I have my life's dream, 991 GT3. By the way, I have a 5-year contract with my wife, no new cars for 5 years. In order to broker that GT3 deal, I had to give up something. So I gave up my freedom, my car freedom, for the next 5 years. You know, I've got 4 years, 200 and, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many days I have left, but I'm counting down the days. I'm happy though. You know, when I have the cars that I want, I don't have any aspirations to change them. I'd like to get a GT3 RS, but I'm not there yet. I'm not bored with the GT3, so why spend the extra money? So my car guy progression is what I believe to be the proper progression, which was, forget the first two cars, but Civic Si, S2000, RSX, S2000, M3, in tandem S4, then Carrera S, then M3, then GT3. So that's my car guy progression. That's how I got there. That's the story of, you know, how I've gotten so many cars, and maybe I'm hoping that you're maybe a little bit more entertained, at least watching me wash the car, rather than me just sitting there staring at you for an hour. So that's the story. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a message responding to the video. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.